Hi, friends. I'm Becca Werwell, author of the Road Trip Rescue series of faith filled contemporary adventures for kids ages 8 to 12. And today I want to talk to you about my recent social media break. Why I chose to take a break, what I learned over the course of the social media break, which I'm actually still in the middle of right now, unless you count YouTube, which I haven't been, and then what might change in the future going forward. So before we go any further, I want to read a post that I wrote and I shared on Instagram and Facebook on June 20th to announce the fact that I was taking a little bit of time off from social media. As I record this, it's been a little over a month because today is July, I think 26th as I record this. Yes, today is July 26th as I record this, so it's been a little over a month, and I'm planning to return to social media next week or maybe in 2 weeks. We'll see how next week goes. In early August, I'm planning to return. So the break will be about 6 to 7 weeks in total. Okay, here's the post that I wrote on June 20th, 2024. I've decided to take a little summer vacation from social media. Starting today, I'll be taking about a month off of social media to focus on spending time with my family and on the most important parts of my business, writing and publishing more books. The best way to stay connected with me during this time is to sign up for my email newsletter at beccawerwell.com/newsletter or use the link in my bio. There, I'll share any updates I would have shared here and more. I'm planning to be back in August as I prepare for the road trip return release on September 4th. If you have any questions about why I've chosen to take this break, please feel free to ask, but not here because I won't see it. See you in August. So that was what I shared on June 20th, and that is the last that I have posted or been on my account since then. So, why I needed this break? Well, I was looking at my phone way too much and spending too much time scrolling on it through the day without even realizing it. It became like a habit. Before I knew it, my phone was in my hand. Before I knew it, I was on Instagram. Before I knew it, I was scrolling through reels. And the little pockets of time in my day started to become me automatically on my phone, which I really didn't like. And I started learning more about some statistics about average phone usage and the average social media user and how much time they spend on social media. And it's really concerning. And a lot of the reason that I started doing this research was thinking of the type of example that I want to set for my daughter, who's a little over a year old. So here's a few of the studies I found, and I'll put the links to these in the video description in case you want to read more of this research for yourself. A 2016 study by researcher D. Scout found that on average, smartphone users touch their phones around 2,617 times a day, with the heaviest users touching it 5,427 times a day. And that sounds like such a high number, but when I start thinking about the way I automatically grab my phone wherever I am, like I compulsively have to check it, I can see how that would really add up over time. Another survey, this one by Harmony Healthcare IT, said that Americans spend a daily average of 4 hours and 37 minutes on their phones. That's almost 5 hours a day on our phones. That would be equivalent to 1 day a week, 6 days a year, or 70 days per year. And then listen to this. So, according to a small Stanford study, children get their first phone around the age of 12. So, for a child who gets their phone at age 12, if they live for the average life expectancy of an American, which is 76, that means the average American will spend 12 years staring at their phone over the course of their life. I do not want to spend 12 years of my life on my phone. The other one I found, according to research from GWI, the typical social media user spends 2 hours and 23 minutes a day using social platforms. So, obviously, not all of that phone usage is social media. There are other things on our phones that are also very distracting, but social media does make up a good chunk of that. So, that was the first. I was noticing I was on my phone a lot more than I wanted to be. Reason number two, I was feeling more anxious after spending time on social media. Like somehow I feel like the algorithms, I don't know if they could sense what I would be anxious about, but I felt like I was getting content that would give me things to worry about or would make me think I wasn't doing things correctly or I had made a wrong decision about something, just things that were constantly feeding into that. And there have been various studies that have shown a clear link between social media and anxiety and depression, particularly among adolescents. According to Psychology Today, there was a study of nearly 7,000 youth ages 12 to 15, so pretty big study, and it found that those teens who spent more than 3 hours a day on social media doubled their risk of poor mental health outcomes that included anxiety and depression. And then smaller studies have shown that limiting that social media usage has actually shown improvement in depression symptoms. There was another study of more than 14,000 14-year-olds that found that increased social media use, so kids who spent a lot of time on social media would often have poor sleep. It was linked with online harassment, poor body image, low self esteem, and again, increased risk of depression. And girls are more at risk for these negative impacts than boys, according to these studies. Okay, a third reason. So, spending too much time, I was experiencing negative effects. And then, third, it just wasn't enjoyable for me to try to be constantly creating new content and playing almost like the social media game as an author to try to make sure I was producing the kind of content that those platforms want to feature. So, for example, Reels videos do really well on Instagram. In fact, all the social media platforms seem to really be favoring video content. But producing those Reels just I felt like took so much of my energy, took so much of my mental space, and also the reels disappear right away. So I was putting this work in to create this content. And granted, I have never done this very consistently. I have never done it very well. But even if I tried to play the game, it felt like the reward was so small and limited that this content was just disappearing. So it really didn't feel like the best use of my time, especially with a busy summer where there were lots of other things I wanted to focus on. And honestly, I can tell you that most of my book sales have not come from social media. They've come from author visits. They came from my homeschool convention or other in person events that I've attended. But social media, I have not seen a direct correlation with a lot of sales in social media. And then the final reason I have written down here is that I really do want to set a good example for my daughter. And I know I mentioned that, but it's just been something I've been thinking about a lot lately is how we want to be intentional with screen time now. And then as she gets older, being intentional with when she's able to get a smartphone, being intentional with social media and not wanting her to be on social media when she's young, because there have been so many clearly researched negative effects on this. So, as we've been thinking through this, I want to think about what I'm modeling to her. And so, as she's getting older, if we're saying, well, we don't want you on social media because A, B, and C, if I'm on social media all the time, what does that show her? What am I teaching through my actions? And also, is she seeing me on my phone all the time? Because I really don't want that. I want her to see me as being present with her because I want to be present with her. So in June, as I was thinking through all of these things and about how I wanted to spend my time this summer, I stumbled across a podcast called Writing Off Social. This is a podcast for female Christian writers who want to grow and nurture their audience without social media, with co hosts and writers Sandy Cooper and Mary Kay Tiller. The podcast description says, are you tired of chasing the algorithm? Has social media left you feeling drained, overwhelmed, unfruitful, and trapped? Their message resonated with me so much. I started listening to the podcast in June, and over the course of my social media break, I listened through the backlist. And that was very encouraging as I looked to the future to see that just because I'm an author doesn't mean I have to be on social media. There are other options, there are other ways to connect with readers. So that's all the reasons that I got off. I decided to take this break. Now, what I've learned. Okay, number one, my social media phone problem was worse than I thought. After I had taken Instagram off my phone, I still found myself grabbing my phone and automatically going to the spot on my phone where Instagram had been and clicking that spot. I realized that I had just been so used to it, so accustomed to any part of free time, any like little margin of my day, I would just go there, I would automatically click in. And I don't want to do that. I want to do other things automatically. I want to pick up a book if I have a little bit of spare time. I want to do other things. And speaking of that, without having social media on my phone as a go to, I now had these new pockets of space in the in between moments of my day for things that brought a lot more joy than social media, like reading. Reading is a great example of that. I felt less anxious in the sense that I feel like I had less to be anxious about. So before, if I'd get on social media and be scrolling and then I'd see something or read a story and I'd think, oh no, what if that happened to me? Or, oh no, I need to change the way I do something, or this might happen. It would create these what if questions that would cycle through my brain. But without being on it, without having that constant influx of information and news, which is often negative or fear based, I felt a lot better. I also felt less pressure to perform. It was like this weight had been lifted where I had felt before, like, okay, I have to post on social media. What am I going to post? And how am I going to word it? And is it going to be well received? And are people going to like it? And is it going to be seen? It was just this pressure that was lifted. And because of that, I felt like I was able to be more present in everyday moments instead of just always looking around and thinking, well, what can I use as content? Because before, I really do feel like I was thinking, okay, well, what if I take a picture of this? And what could be a good caption that would go with it, that would connect with my audience or connect with my books? So I didn't focus on those things. Instead, I was able to just be present. So, as I mentioned, I am still in the middle of this social media break. I have not yet returned at the time of recording this. But I do have some changes in mind for things that I want to adjust in the future. So, number one would be keeping social media off my phone even after I return. Now, there are limitations to this, especially Instagram. I don't think you can post stories or reels. I'm not sure about that. But I know there's a lot of limited functionality when you're accessing it from the computer as opposed to on a phone. But I think this would really help me to not be automatically going to it. And if I do need to use it on my phone to post something, I could always download it onto my phone and then delete it right afterward. I also think there are other apps I need to delete from my phone, a big one being email. Email is a really big distraction for me. Email is important, it's a fantastic tool, but I would find that I was obsessively checking. And sometimes before bed, for example, maybe I'd get an email with a work task and I'd have to think through it. And then I'd be laying in bed and thinking through what I have to do in the morning. And I would just rather not have that. I'd rather be able to sleep well with the day having been concluded and work having been set aside and have set times where I go to my computer. So as I record this, I haven't yet taken email off my phone, but I definitely would like to do that. I also would like to stop, or I guess continue having stopped using social media for personal use. So I really only used Facebook occasionally for personal use, but I really didn't get anything out of that. If anything, I feel like it stressed me out because I would feel like, okay, it's this milestone that I need to post about because people will be waiting for a post. And it just felt like a lot of pressure. So I'd rather let that pressure go. So maybe occasionally using it for business, but honestly, all of that to say, I want to keep at least taking these longer breaks from social media, but potentially I would love to leave social media altogether in the future because I really have found so much joy in this break. So it's something I'm continuing to pray through, think through. I really want to think through my business and how I can find new non social media ways to engage my readers. And on that note, I do have some exciting news coming soon. I'm not ready to say much about it yet, but I've been talking with an author friend about a way we might be working together to do something to engage our readers and outside of social media. All that to say, I want to work on ways to build my business without having to lean on social media. And then a last one would be keeping my phone in another room at night and not checking it first thing in the morning. Because when it's on my nightstand right beside my bed, it's so easy to, even in the middle of the night, look over, check the time, and then I might see that I got an email. And then all of a sudden my mind is going. So keeping it in the other room and then making sure I start my day in other ways. For example, journaling and reading my Bible, which I do in the mornings, but I usually do after I've checked my phone. What would it look like to start the opposite way instead and not dip into work and into the outside world until I've had that time alone with God? So, those are some changes that I either am already in the process of making or things that I might be changing in the future. So, I'm curious if you're watching this, if you've ever taken a break from social media or if you're off of it completely. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what have been the joys of it, what have been maybe some challenges as well. And I do want to say that whether or not I'm on social media, I'm on a break right now. I won't be soon. Maybe I'll be off it in the future. We'll see. But the best way to connect with me will always be my newsletter for learning about my author updates, book stuff, all of that. And you can find that at beccawerwell.com/newsletter. Thank you so much for watching. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and you're able to be present in the moment, whatever it brings.